man was to hear the concert. He caught it so fast. He's
She told me her schedule.
But
I can
see-
follow a clock.
yeah, but this one has bigger plans for us always that are unknown to me about the interview. We could have planned it a little more, like you're putting on a play, and there's so much stuff I'd like to tell you about movies, about young Dr. Freud and my old friend from Vienna who was sitting in the opera house when Hitler marched in, and so they had to go out and go to France, and I met him finally. I just wrote to Emily. I said, when you're in Paris, look him up if he's still alive, because his goal was to be a playwright, and it was much more.
I did something on Manhattan Neighborhood Network with that.
Young Dr.
Young
Freud?
Dr. Freud. I showed how it was very racist against Germans, actually.
Well, he was...
Because I don't think anybody in our family would have done what they were depicting. I really don't.
What do you mean? Oh, it was so, the discrimination of... that was going on, Paul, in Vienna. The Vienna... Because my mother-in-law was from there, and you seem to be... But the point Michael brought up with the Holocaust was that the Hasidic people were picked on. They were easy to kill because they were so distinctive in their look. And
basically distrusted.
What's that?
Basically distrusted as well.
The Hasidics?
well, if he was making propaganda against people, how would you discriminate who's the one to be?
There's a lot of rising rage right now in the country because people who are responsible aren't acting responsibly, say in the media, and so people start to lash out who they think is responsible. And they may not be right who they're lashing out on, but as long as they're angry. So I think that's the idea of not having racial slurs towards anyone, is to just try to give an even look.
But it's a kind of warning if you're going to follow an odd way, or that you're going to be knocked off. So,
well, I used to think when I was a kid, if I was a German, what would I have done? And I've carried that all my life. The message to me from that was speak out when you can.
if you've heard, but if you only heard propaganda in your life, the churches were.
I know.
Only a few martyrs survived.
And what do they get for their troubles? And what do they get for their troubles? A day in their honor. Okay.
Would you like one, Steve?
Well, there's already a feast of St. Stephen, so I'm not halfway
well,
there.
Some people want to be.
He was, yeah.
Some people, like I see it in George, they feel sad that they're not going to be remembered beyond a little bit of time, and
A legacy thing again.
Oh, what do you think about legacies? Because you're a musician.
Well,
A composition will go on?
composition's always there. I mean, it's a piece of history now. Whether it's a history, whether it's obscure history or not, it's still history. So.
Well, you're on so many albums now. You're playing over the years with all these different people. And
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. So
your sound has been laid down. The Library of Congress has you in many places. And
that's true. That's true. So yeah, I guess maybe in some obscure text in the future, I might be referred to. But yeah.
no, you.
What do you think? Do you think
The record keeping's good now.
Do you think musicians have a more critical look at society, or their tendency towards harmony can pick up a message that others are missing, a melody, a rhythm?
Perhaps. Sometimes it's melodies and rhythms that are asymmetric and not pleasant. But yeah, I think we can pick up on those things. And even if they are asymmetric and unpleasant, we can still deal with them and sing along. Yeah.
That's nice.
yeah, and also if it's good music, you're not really caring about where it came from.
Right.
The background of the person who wrote it. Hey, if this thing swings.
Right, like some of those, some of the people I worked with who I haven't cared for as people, but as musicians, I got no problem playing with them.
Wow.
Do I want to hang out with them? I don't think so.
That's true.
Yeah.
And to be respected with, like, who your kids' friends are, sometimes you instinctively know this particular person in the rest home has proved over the years, but some people say, well, aren't you a friend with this person? Well, you can't explain it. Or it's not kind maybe to tell the truth about that's what you think is. Well, Steve, I was explaining it to a new friend of Paula's about what is love, falling in love or something. I said, finding someone as crazy as you are.
No.
Did you find someone as crazy as you are and it didn't work out?
That's what true happiness is.
It's like we got a story here.
No, I didn't find out.
What about those asymmetrical notes there?
Yeah, well, Steve.
Oh my.
No, but
Just a second, Jen. Just a second. Don't let him off the hook here.
I'm not letting him off. I'm just investigating
off.
now.
You're sliding right off.
I'm sliding right off. I will refrain from editorial comment.
No, we think.
What do you think about musicians? Because you were talking, with Warren about a very extreme art form.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think in general that musicians, like artists, the real artists don't even like to be called artists, it seems. They're just saying, hey, we're just seeing something that everybody should be seeing. Don't set us aside in a category, because when you do that, you abnegate your responsibility to start seeing what we're seeing.
I know that for a lot of people, once they call somebody an artist, it's a way of really ghettoizing their outlook, which is to say, artist.
Yeah.
And since people in the workaday world would not consider themselves artists, they're already creating an us-them dichotomy.
That
You agree with
explains
that?
it. Yeah, certainly. They say, oh, you're a musician. Oh, okay, well, I understand why you don't sleep. I understand why you stay up late or do whatever it is that you do, because you're different.
Yeah.
You're over here. You're not in the mainstream.
And so then people don't take responsibility for the work that seems to fall on the shoulders of the people that are usually the least paid and the least taken care of.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, and I guess to say them, the artist, or we artists, we get a short shift in life, at least in this society. Other places they're more appreciated, but here, there's great stuff going on all the time, and people you've never heard of are fantastic.
Right.
So,
When I was in Venice, Warren Cucurullo wanted to take me down to the beach to see a 17-year-old homeless girl that said was an incredible musician.
Mm-hmm.
So he definitely had the eye for that.
Well, what gets me is Mike doesn't blow his own horn, so to speak, when it comes to some of the things he's done. But, at one point he was a guest soloist in Japan with a symphony over there. So they treated you pretty royally from the way you talk about it.
yeah.
Yeah, because he was the man. He was the one in front of the whole orchestra, playing his solos and showing the locals what a trombone can really do. Then there's times he'll be back home in Los Angeles, and man, despite the greatness and the virtuosity, they're still looking for a job. For most musicians, it's job to job to job. And not a question of greatness. There's always going to be a marketplace, and the skills it takes to create lots of money and the skills it takes to create music,
Not necessarily the same.
not necessarily.
This is the one I first met, but I want
Oh,
to
okay.
discuss this big one here, which has good discussions about jazz and I'd be glad to give you this one if you'd like,
Right.
because it'll do more.
Yeah, we got something for everyone here.
Really?
Well,
We brought you oranges too.
I have what is either a luxury or something, but I go out and buy books. Gangster rap, the culture of hip hop,
That's gangster rap.
jazz origins, anatomy.
Did you say what's gangster rap?
Oh, I think
No, it's not gangster, it's gangsta.
yeah.
Gangsta.
Gangster rap.
What's that mean? I don't know. I haven't read what my mom has.
Oh, this will be.
Jen, let me-
I'll.
Just let him
I'm
tell.
sure you'll be interested to
Well-
carry it. And you don't have to read it, but occasionally you can see what's in it. And
Okay, this is wonderful. Thank you.
he ended his speech by. It turned out he's a Baptist minister too, and he was giving the rhetoric, and to me it was very stimulating when he says, "The brothers and sisters will all be praying for Obama, and I will too now because I just have had the insight now and a lot of things by that one speech and." I wasn't bugged by his being a Baptist minister or anything else. And I wasn't over impressed by his being so educated. I don't know what his degrees are, but people are bowing down and slaving to send their kids. The main thing is to see your daughters and hurt by. Sure. There's such potential in them.
Looking from, we were talking about the different cultures and how you look at things and how you see things, and it is different. There is a difference. I know I see things differently, not because I was poor and grew up in the ghetto and all that kind of stuff, because that's not true. But even just the other day, I got another DWB.
What's a DWB?
Ask the man.
DWB is driving while black.
Oh, see, I told
It happens all the time.
George that this is occurring because,
Oh, it's definitely occurring.
see, my son had some trouble, and I had a parole officer, and they sent me to a psychiatrist. In those days, this was
Well, tell him what he did. He got into
No, it
the
didn't
alcohol
matter
there,
what he
and then he
did.
went down to Telegraph and fell through a plate.
he was
glass
in the
window.
wrong company, let's say, and I was home when the call came from. I was making root beer with George, as a matter of fact, and so this was a single mother then, so to speak, but no, you understand, years later, because I couldn't fix it in my youngest son's mind, the time span he's looking at now.
Well, tell him what happened. You went to the guy after you saw the psychiatrist.
The sentence from the judge was, what is it called, the parole officer or something, or it's his juvenile thing.
Right.
So
The sentence was
They said-
too harsh.
they said go to the psychiatrist, and it was a child psychiatrist, and in 45 minutes we cleared it up. I knew it was clear, and he knew it was. His philosophy, we're not going to mess into Bob's brain and investigate all this because maybe he saw it happen often or he was experienced. And for me, maybe, I'm not sure if I had to be able, I was able to afford a psychiatrist for that or children's thing, but anyway, it was a different world for me. But then as the years came by and I read the news, there are more black youths in trouble, and I saw they're not getting the same treatment. I guess it was gentle treatment I got,
Oh, it's,
and I
it's
thought,
separate but equal, haven't you heard?
well, I know, but see, you see, this is so much later, and that's why my education is way behind, and I'm grasping onto this because it's vital information, and another vital thing is the whole history of the black Muslims and all these things, and it's well, see, they're on the point of making Martin Luther King a saint, and possibly I say, yeah, sure, that's but we don't want to. I think this is good to be aware of the struggle that's gone on.
So you think you got arrested just because you were black?
I didn't get arrested. I got stopped.
You were stopped.
I get stopped a lot.
So you weren't
Yeah.
drinking?
And so
I wasn't drinking.
You weren't drinking.
you really are a sample of I'm aware of what goes on.
Yeah.
And I try to tell George that this is what's happening to black kids too.
Yeah, it hardens you. It hardens you. That's you start getting a certain. You know, I think the policemen are our friends. We need police. I couldn't do it. Wouldn't want to do it, but we definitely need policemen in our society. But you know, you get stopped sometimes just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Or it used to be having a new car. I was stopped by a policeman for.
Do you know these people next door got broken into for growing medical marijuana?
Really?
It's legal for them to do it by the state,
Right.
but it's not legal
For
by
the
the
feds.
federal. And they made a big fanfare out of it. You
Really?
know?
Yeah.
No, I mean this is
guys.
standard.
A growing room kind of thing.
No,
they
it's the
came
federal
and they make you
government.
feel like criminals because according to the feds you
weren't
are.
here, Paula.
That's what I was told. What was it like? You described it.
George wouldn't
Tell me what
let
it
his
was like.
old mother know. I know the garage. You know what was. Something mysterious was going on there.
In the garage.
And even Bob was tempted to grow pot for the money.
No, but this is medical marijuana.
But-
They're
but
legally
they never
entitled to do
told
it.
me that, and they bought their mother's a big car, and something. The money was coming from somewhere, but that's not. I really didn't. You know, people.
We were at the lumber yard and somebody had migraine headaches, and she said the only thing that had helped her was marijuana. But she's older now, and she's kind of
That's
out
it.
of the loop of getting it.
You're
and she
telling
said she
us,
wants to
Paula.
get it. She wants to find out how to get medical marijuana.
And
But there's still a
can find
stigma. You
out.
could see her voice lowered. She felt, you know.
Right.
Because the federal government, I found out, prevailed. If marijuana, we're going to have a vote in California or again, or there's big bucks
If
in
we're going to
this.
have a vote, we're going to have secession from the union.
But will you vote?
What do you think
vote?
about this, Stephen? Medical marijuana.
Oh, you're in California.
Yeah, really. I mean, let's pass laws against plants. You know, with all the things.
I think half the prisons would be emptied. It has huge implications.
Yeah.
Huge
I'd
implications.
say
There's an industry. in the
a big
prisons.
proportion, from what I understand, a big proportion of the inmates are in there for nonviolent crimes, and due to the three strikes law, they're locked up. And meanwhile, other criminals are getting the boot because there's no room for them. And these are the violent criminals who are being put out because the nonviolent ones got caught with the three strikes and they have no options, and the sentencing judges are.
Do you know about David Lynch's program? Do you know who David Lynch is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Want to talk about that?
Well, in terms of bringing TM to the schools, options, and the sending put out because the nonviolent ones got caught with the three strikes and they have no options, and the sentencing judges are.
Do you know about David Lynch's program? Do you know who David Lynch is?
Well, in terms of bringing TM to the schools,
I hadn't heard that. That sounds
They
great.
call it quiet time. I think they're not trying to call it one particular
Oh,
thing.
that makes like they're trying to learn
Quiet
from their
time is-
mistakes in the past.
Quiet time. Are you
Yeah.
a meditator?
Yeah, sometime meditate. That's my teacher right there.
Oh.
We stay close.
Teacher to the stars. He taught Ally McGraw. No, he did. He taught Ally McGraw too. Yeah, Stephen and I go back.
I was telling Mike on the way here some of our
Yeah.
illustrious days
Excuse
on
me, I didn't
Gailey.
mean to interrupt. So,
No, the notion of bringing that element to the educational system, well, that's how you and I met, right? I mean, we met at a college that was based on the advantages a student has from taking time out to clear your head.
right.
So speaking from experience, I'm all for it. And yet, due to some legal precedents that were set. A lot of people were concerned that doing TM means you're doing something religious. Well, you start getting into a war of semantics, and then it's up to anyone, how it's going to fall out in the court system. So now, how do you bring back in this value of meditation into a classroom in such a way so that semantically you don't get caught up in a classroom courthouse environment where even though everyone agrees, the students are enjoying it, the teachers like the results the students are providing, the administration is delighted with all the good values that the meditation is providing. All that's good, but if a few people think that it's a church and state conflict, then the benefits mean nothing. I was listening to this interview with some of the astronauts who went to the moon, and when Apollo 8 was broadcasting back that Christmas, and they read from the book of Genesis. Here you are, here's the Earth, in the middle of space, and they're reading about, and God said it was good and all that. But once they got back to Earth, someone sued them, saying you were taking public money to go to outer space and read the Bible.
That could have been a distraction for other things, though. The moon is a very, very controversial topic. Did you know that? I mean, sometimes they do distraction things.
There's some people I work with, I'll just call them fanatical Christians. Be nice about it. And I stay with them sometimes, and I was actually meditating up there. And they said, "What are you doing, meditating and stuff?" I said, "Well, yeah." And they're like, "Well, what religion is that?" It's like, religion? It's not like what you guys are doing, if that's what you mean. I don't think it's just a way to calm myself down, to be relaxed, and they didn't understand that though. Not at all.
Oh,
I feel relaxed around you.
You were gonna explain gangsta?
Gangsta.
What's that mean?
Gangsta. Well, of course, we all know what gangster is. It's just the term that was taken over in that community, and just some people don't speak quite correctly. They say gangsta instead of gangster. It's just improper English. That's all.
What kind of music? Yeah.
So if you have,
And Bertha, them
you would not have gangster rap, because gangsters don't rap, but gangstas do.
Yeah.
See, there's a thing about the ER and the A on the end of a word, which happens for several words. It's the A at the end of the word is okay. The ER is removed from this particular culture.
Because it's too proper.
Because it's too proper. And it comes from quote unquote proper people, and it means something else.
Plus,
I don't
proper
think-
people might call it
No.
criminal, whereas someone else might say that's exactly what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's exactly the
Well,
action that needs to be done.
When rap
That-
when rap came out, I thought it was great because it was political music. It's like the folk music was like the new folk music. It was talking about society and this and that and the other.
But it seemed as though it grabbed some of the artists, like what we were talking about, who probably didn't want to even be called artists, but they were just doing the responsibility of speaking out when others weren't. And then they got grabbed and made superstars.
Yeah,
And then kind of isolated that way.
And it became then the rap started being, mine is bigger than yours type of stuff, a braggadocious type of thing. And
that's a good word.
It
That's a
kind of
good
lost
word,
its essence,
bragging.
Yeah.
You have
'Cause
to
it-
beware of bragging, because
because
we're all kind of declaring our victories, our great discoveries, because I can't hide it, because I'm so happy that I'm getting reassurance of things. You can't feel at home in the world, or
well, I feel at home everywhere. They can't stop me.
well, that'd be,
And that's the rebellious thing that comes out
I'm so glad to
of
hear that,
Yeah.
There's a lady comes up here and she makes T-shirts, and she's working with kids. She's black, and she dresses so nice, and she calls herself Queen something. And to me, she is, because she is. She does beautiful artwork and is like a friend coming.
What music do you want to most be remembered by?
Music do I want to most be remembered by?
That's something that you did and you felt, wow, this is why I came here.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I think the most fun I've had, I played on a popular TV show for a couple of years. I went on to play with that guy for almost 20 years, and that was a very good experience.
What was that show? You can't talk about it?
I can talk about it. It was The Tonight Show
The Tonight Show.
with Johnny Carson
Oh.
and Doc Severinsen, actually.
And you felt like you were connecting with all of America, and you were lifting.
I suppose that is playing with some of my idols as kids, because I used to watch the show as a kid, and I think I was the youngest guy in the band, and it was quite an honor to be there and learn from those guys and actually play with them.
Mm-hmm.
And travel all over the place and do this, and get to see a lot of everything. I suppose my compositions had nothing to do with that. Some of those I like. I know they're not necessarily commercial things, but commercially accessible things, but
Mm-hmm.
I like them.
What would you want viewers who aren't Americans to know about an American musician like yourself?
Well, I think they know, because one of the things I've done in my life, I was in the military in Germany, and I got out and I spent a year over in Germany just playing, and much more appreciated by the Europeans than I have ever been here, before or since.
Japan and
Really,
Germany.
since.
Japan, both countries.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Well, why do you think there's such a dismal state of appreciation for musicians?
I think it's our culture. It's not just musicians, it's anybody who, tries to make pretty things. It's not that important. We're more, what's the bottom line? And I think the arts has been reduced to that in a lot of ways. Not so much how good is it, but what will it pay me? How much can we make off
There's
of
a
it?
great champion of public access TV called Sidney Dean, and he sort of saw the handwriting on the wall in the early 70s about what we know as the internet. We think it's come just up out of nowhere, but it was known that it would come. And he said that in Europe, they felt that you couldn't trust something as precious as the ability to communicate with each other to something that would be commercial.
Mhm.
And so they were looking at America as an example of that, so that when when the new technology was coming up, he wanted to protect it. And because of that,
Protect it from what?
from commercialism, from a message that the biggest person gets to promote, and everyone else, there's no space
Yeah.
for everyone else. And they use the musicians.
And America is
They
full of-
copyright their music, even the creator of the music, once it's copywritten and owned by somebody else, even the creator can't get it back. He could say, I didn't want it to be used that way.
And America is full of distrustful people. That's why our laws are so different. I remember when I was in Japan, if you got a traffic ticket, for example, your penalty was to go to a courthouse, explain, accept your guilt, explain why that was bad, and that you wouldn't do it ever again. And that was mortifying to those people over there. This is 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you had that law here in the United States, what, all I got to do down at the courthouse and say I'm sorry? It's a joke. It just can't work here.
Yeah. No money attached.
No money attached for anyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, where's the money? Where's the money?
Well, to keep these facilities going, we have to, the parking meters are away, and sometimes I don't mind getting a ticket or something, because it's like my taxes to the city to get the streets.
Nice way to look at it, huh?
They're not full. So
Generosity.
even Paula being here, hello?
You had a
Hello?
nice time, that's for sure.
See?
Yeah.
Both bridges.
Oh, you can see both of them?
3
now?
bridges. You can see Richmond
who's
too.
this?
Right up there.
Oh, good, Bob. You'll love it. Come soon.
Oh, great. Bob's
Yeah.
coming here.
Bob's coming here.
Why, I didn't recognize my own son's voice. I haven't heard him for a while, and I just wrote him a letter actually saying I miss him, and well, that's one way to communicate by mail now. I don't have a cell phone.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, he'll be so happy, and I'll let him sit here 5 minutes.
But
He'll
she-
understand.
Mom's missing her concert the whole time, so I assume you're having a good time if you're missing your concert today.
Oh, sure, everything, because this is so relevant to me. I stopped reading at the Jazz Point, and my friend from Nebraska is in her 80s, and she's always liked jazz. That's a mystery to me. How old Presbyterian lady, very traditional.
Oh, that's not a
And
mystery
so-
to me.
Yeah, I know.
Not a
But
mystery at all.
see, maybe I'll learn to get in the jazz spirit, or I think Bob Dylan was a great poet, and I still quote him, about your position and your place. This is the problem. Are you satisfied? I'm satisfied, and nothing can. But I thought, gee, do I have to make a few bucks and start a business now? Is it fitting at 80 years old to think of that?
Sure,
And
yeah.
Bob,
Yeah.
who's coming, well, I'll reveal something about him. He used to be head of the Center for Dependent Living. So after, see the power you get when you're the founder of an organization. A nonprofit, there's no profit in it, but to well, this whole family is.
Do you mean owning this house is like, because that's what happens. Everybody would come and stay here. We would never leave. So he called it the Center for Dependent Living.
well,
A lot to be said for it, in this house
to get
especially.
married, no, to still be living at home at 28. His wife is amazing. He did it, but
Or to get divorced and come back.
well, don't figure aren't you planning to come back sometime?
Yeah,
And
I'm back.
help me.
Here I am.
And help me when
Yeah.
I'm old.
yeah.
Well, whenever that day
I have
comes.
to test you if you really
Yeah, it's on
recognize.
tape.
Paula, do you know
I'm
me
going to
well
come back
enough?
when my mother's old.
Not a day before. When that day comes, and I'm checking my watch, then we're going to know Paula's back. Until then, woo!
But I would, I'm giving don't park me in front of the TV.
Yeah, we promised that. We
I
promised,
had to-
George and I signed on the Thai food container. We promised not to park our mother in front of a television set, unless it's cartoons. That's what, no, it doesn't have to be cartoons even. Cartoons.
Well, Paula, what I'm going through now is when I come home, I'm sure you're going to be glued to the TV, and
You?
you to your video thing.
Oh, computers.
And my grandchildren too. They don't look up. They belong to it. They're somewhere else, and when I get a stray indication, I don't know how your daughter is, or how old is she?
She's 18.
Oh, she's, yeah. Well, she'll be.
She's right in there.
Oh, that's wonderful too. But I'm having 2 teenagers come too, and just all I want is a little indication of what's going on in their brains, or the goal.
Sorry.
Because I wanted to find.
What's that?
I said sorry.
I don't know.
Can you figure
I'm
out?
assuming something that they all want. What I wanted going to Greece, I wanted a husband. Everybody was getting married, and
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily so.
but I wasn't heading for the nunnery. There wasn't much choices, as my friend said. Secretary, nurse, and
Teacher.
and I failed as a teacher, so I went away to Greece. And
There's lots of, my daughter is, she's got a scholarship. She's going to be a classical tuba player.
Wow, so it runs in the family.
Wow.
Both parents play trombone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Oh, and it still didn't work out?
No, it didn't work out.
Well, it didn't work out with me, but it took 20 years, and I thought, well, stick it out.
It took about 15
If you're
years
in
for
the,
me.
if you're on the wrong track, you just, well,
Bite the
I didn't
bullet.
have enough. It's suffering to split up finally, and that's why I went lucky to find the Lama and a kind of meditation that's extremely deep with the Tibetan Buddhists. A man that was fresh from Tibet. You don't see that like 1970. The luxury of living in Berkeley, Steve, it's endless. And
I've always
And
admired
I'm grateful for everything that comes in. It's called a crazy place and all that. I understand, but
no, as far as
I don't have to travel anymore to find it.
Right.
You're right here.
well, as far as being a hotbed of intellectual marketplace goings on, and you can't think of anywhere on the West Coast that's more exciting than the Bay Area. Well,
Here he is.
the chairman of the Independent Living Business, Bob, Mike, Bob.
How you doing, sir?
See, the blue shirt memo, very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Bob,
Prison shirt.
I didn't understand my own kid's voice on the phone, so
Maybe
I'm
it was a
going to
cell
bed
phone.
now and leave you all.
Oh,
And,
is it for lack of a chair?
no, it's a lack of strength to keep going after
Oh.
6 in the morning, and
Well,
you
welcome
know
to
that.
the TV show. You're
Yeah.
invited to the conversation.
Okay, Bob. I wrote you a letter today. You'll get it tomorrow. Thanks for being here. So.
Oh, well, thank
Oh,
you very
thank you.
much.
Oh, just a pleasure
Thanks
to
for this.
hand out the knowledge I'm gaining. I'm loving it.
Drop science, as we say.
Yeah.
Drop what?
Okay.
Science. Drop science.
Bye-bye.
Drop science. What's that?
Well, science, yeah. That whole hemisphere, you can just let that one go and go back to the other hemisphere for a while.
Ah.
It's been a wide-ranging conversation so far. But the notion, it keeps coming back to the value of the artist in our society, which apparently is not too valued, unless you're a popular artist, you know. I've met a few people who've been able to bridge the gap, and it's because they've understood that marketing a personality is what people in this environment really appreciate.
That's true.
You know, in terms of development of young people before they discover their own personality, they're going to try on this one's personality, that one's personality. So if they like this movie star or that pop singer, I'll try
those bad influences.
yeah, so often. And yet it's interesting, after all these years, decades later, you know, you're with someone, you meet somebody who's your age, you haven't met before, but say you find out you both enjoyed the same band way back in high school, well, there's a bonding quality there. So there is something to be said about whatever vibration an artist puts forth, if it can be somehow packaged and made distinct from the other people, whether it's a long hair band or a jug band or whatever.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So that means we're all poisoned by Sonny and Cher and the Monkees.
Well,
And there's
we're all poisoned
no
by this-
appreciation for real
by this,
musicians.
by this capitalist society. I mean, I was having a conversation with one of my conservative buddies, and he was saying it's all about the money, and it really is all about the money here. It's all about profit and loss, bottom line.
I think it's capital ownership. Capital is not bad. You just, more people need to own it. If the artist gets his rights signed away, somebody's making more money off his
Sure.
genius.
Well, what he's saying is, if it wasn't for the money people, you wouldn't have
It wouldn't be out there.
manufactured
It wouldn't be out
musicians. No, like the Monkees. The
It wouldn't be
Beatles were real,
manufactured.
but the Monkees were manufactured in Hollywood by advertising
Right.
in different little newspapers to get these certain, they were looking for a certain look, and they put a program together with certain songwriters and so on. And then, I mean, you have real people like Janis Joplin, then you have fake people like Cher and Sonny that are, you know, made from Hollywood. And the reason you can tell is that person Cher is still producing crap years after her expiration date. You know, like when milk goes sour, they say must use by so and so. it's like her and Goldie Hawn. They should have been used in a way long time ago, but here they are.
But you can use sour milk for something.
Yeah, make
Buttermilk
cottage
pancakes.
cheese or something else.
Yeah.
out of it.
It's not that it's totally useless.
Well, let me put it this way, Mike, because, you know, we have an illustrious musician here who's respected in Japan and Germany and Europe more than he is here.
Oh, so
Well,
he
no,
really
I
feels
mean,
the pain for
that's
this
not,
Hollywood.
that's not exactly right. I mean, I was felt that way when I was there. I'm sure right now in Europe and Japan they have no idea who I am. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm a household name anywhere except maybe in my own house.
When were you? Well, with what you just said about money is the thing, do you think that this system is allowing the greatest inspiration to inspire the society?
No. No.
So some of the greatest artists are being left behind.
Correct.
But I assume it's always been that way.
I assume so.
You know, there's only been those rare times when the Medicis would fund Michelangelo
Right.
to go ahead and, you know, live your life creating art. We have enough money to fund an army and some artists.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And you know, there was probably a guy almost as good as Michelangelo and probably a guy a little better than him at the same time, but they happen to like him.
But all the rest have to go to Burning Man or something similar back in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, there was a while where this government was more progressive in its attitudes, and so you'd have like the National Endowment for the Arts, which really wanted to, you know, put money out there for the artists.
And we still have it, but now it's a process. Now it's a corporate process to get that application in and make it work.
Yeah, so there's probably a whole minor economy around people who can prepare those forms
Exactly.
just right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's like I have a sister-in-law who specialized in knowing how to fill out the forms for the FDA. If you were a drug company and you wanted FDA approval, I mean, they would literally bring in
Specialist.
well, there'd be a semi-trailer would come in with copy machines in the semi-trailer just to print up enough copies to fill up another semi-trailer of these major test results, big stacks of paper, because that's what the government required. And because she knew which boxes to check, she had a very lucrative occupation just working the government system of filling out forms. And why not? You know, there's...
Why not? Because it's not good health care in the end.
Well, there's always...
Ayurvedic system, you've got a father teaching a son, teaching a grandson, who learned it from his great-grandfather, and you build up the body of knowledge about the medicine. And I assume in Africa it's the same thing. When I was in India studying, a friend of mine showed me a video of a doctor who's having huge results with AIDS, enormous. The thing is, he was teaching voodoo, and I always thought voodoo was a bad thing until I started actually listening to what it was, and I realized this is exactly what I was learning in India. It's about the 5 elements. It's that we're part of nature, and it's a whole nother paradigm of looking at reality. You don't have one authority saying what it is, but you're letting the scientific result go. In other words, what good are all those stacks of papers doing to really understand the human body?
Well, in the notion of science is, can you guarantee a repeatable outcome?
Right.
You know, and
But how can you do that when people are different?
Well, then you go for the big numbers, and that's what these studies
That's
come into.
statistics,
Yeah,
yeah.
we got to have thousands and thousands of people.
But we've got a society strung out on Prozac. You know, they're sending Prozac over to Iraq.
Deservedly
you
so.
never-
That didn't sound like quite a bad idea, actually, because those guys are going through over there. You need something.
I know, but don't you think it's better to look at what you're doing than
Oh,
giving
well,
people?
certainly. They should clearly not be there in the first place, but...
But a lot of people are in jobs and in marriages and relationships they clearly should not be in.
Oh, yes.
And they're relying on the medicine, and that's what I meant about the stacks and stacks. And
Yeah.
the way the drug companies are working, you've got a drug industry,
Sure.
and then you pitch it and promote it, and then make sure you've got the ownership of the drugs. What do you think, Bob? Do you agree?
Well, it's interesting, that ownership thing, because now they're trying to go for generic plant materials that are naturally cure. I don't know the specific ones, but some of them are in remote places like the Amazon, where a certain plant, it has a property of medicine, but the drug companies want to, not just, essentially what they want is that chemical combination
So they can sell it.
molecules, but they want a patent.
Oh,
Yes.
they patent the
But if
genus.
it grows on a tree, it's hard
To
to patent it, and that's where it gets a little.
But they have been. They've been patenting
Well,
DNA. They own the neem, the neem
no,
tree in
you
India.
can smoke pot, or you can take THP or whatever the relevant
THC.
chemical compound and get the same effect. But to make money, you want to put it in a pill form with a special your formula that's slightly different. But if you can pick it off a tree, it's no good. But here's where it's going the other direction, is you're taking something like corn, and before they would have different strains of corn and then a hybrid corn. But when you genetically modify it, you're coming up with something unique that's not just a cross between two plants, but your own plant that you invented, and then you have a life cycle of this plant where it doesn't reproduce itself ideally, like a seedless watermelon. So you have to keep buying the seedless seeds from the big
Seedless
genetic
seeds.
manufacturing, agricultural, pharmaceutical type business guy, because the plant itself, won't reproduce. And so that's the ideal thing.
So you were saying?
I was saying that day, it was in 1992, Bill Cosby, Bob Saget were the guests on the show that night. They gave us we got a pocket watch from Bob Saget. He gave us all a present, all the band members. And I was living in Long Beach at the time with my then wife. And
Oh, excuse me. The Tonight Show was taping in L.A. I thought it was New York.
No, it's LA.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's been in LA for a while now. And we get out of there at 6:30, and I have to drive from Burbank to Long Beach. And usually I go through the city. There's just too many fires. Just too. So I went around the long way, all the way out to like Irwindale and down to 605, and came around like that way. It still took forever. And all the fires and the sirens.
But by that time, you were really successful, right? So you probably weren't involved with the real, I don't know, what she described, what was going on in the neighborhoods,
successful.
And the crack, and what she told me is that cocaine was expensive and crack was getting everybody into it.
Yeah,
Middle class neighborhoods were being ruined. And
it's still that way. I mean, crack is, and the sentences are disproportionate. For crack you get a lot more time for, snortable cocaine.
really,
And that's still true. But I mean, was I successful? Yeah, I had a home in Long Beach with a wife and kid, and the 2 cars and all that stuff, the dog. But the injustice of that whole situation, when they came back with that not guilty, people just snapped. I didn't snap.
you didn't snap,
No, but I thought it was really wrong.
right?
That was really wrong. I'm not one to start lighting stuff on fire. And where the outbreak of it was, allegedly, Florence and Normandy. I don't live far from there right now, with that truck driver. I mean, the story in the neighborhood is that he kind of asked for it. Now, I don't condone what happened to him or anything like that.
Did you have any connections in the neighborhood to know that?
Yeah, I have connections in the neighborhood.
So, okay.
Yeah. But they said, and this is complete hearsay, but they said that he was kind of like saying, well, that was the correct outcome, and he got what he deserved, and he was kind of bragging about how, the right thing happened. And that's why he got pulled out of his truck. That's this Reginald Denny guy. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what the Bosinchi is in the neighborhood.
Well, I'll post what Melle Belle said, and you can kind of see, because what we're trying to figure out now is how to get out of Iraq.
How to get out of...
Iraq. I mean, there's a lot of bad blood there.
To get out of the rock, to get out of any drugs, in my opinion.
Any drugs. He's saying it's an addiction.
Yeah, Iraq or rock. Yeah.
Oh, how to get out of Iraq? Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
But I think you're on the right track, though.
Yeah.
Because you have a certain mindset that's addicted to whatever gets you off.
Yes.
And there's that line from the film Patton where, compared to war, all other forms of human endeavor shrink to insignificance.
Right.
And it's that that notion that there are some people that when they see the rocket's red glare, boy, their rockets go right up. And
It's like dealing with a person addicted to a pleasurable sensation.
well, it's
And he doesn't want
power.
to be talked out of
It lifts them out of their meager individuality into something larger than themselves. That they feel that, if I press this button, I get this rush.
Now, I certainly experienced that in the military. Having these skills and these weapons and all this stuff, and that gives you a certain sort of primeval power. It's like the blood's on your teeth and lips and stuff, and it's kind of scary to be that primitive, but it really hits all those centers, like you're saying, that pleasure. And that's kind of scary for a civilized person, like I hope that I am, to have that kind of rush when that sort of stuff happens.
To find you're not quite so removed.
No,
from
I could
that.
be right there,
Yeah.
and we all could be. It's not far. It's not far away at all.
And is that part of what military training is about, though? To let a person understand that, we do have it in us. That if we're being held down and someone is putting a pillow over our face, you bet we're going to fight back, and we're going to do all we can to get a gasp of oxygen back into our lungs. And that's just the way we're built. And if you can harness that capacity, that drive to survive, and keep it moving forward to persevere over the projected enemy, then you have a fighting force who will go out there on your command and unleash the wrath of hell to achieve some purportedly desired goal.
But then the people who actually in that position start wondering after it's happened, was this actually a purported enemy or was it a real enemy? Why did all this stuff go down?
Yeah.
What's really going on, as we say?
Yeah.
When does that aha come in?
Not immediately.
Because it must be a horrifying aha, because you
Oh, it's very
realize everything
horrifying.
that you've been doing might have been
Yes.
the wrong
Yeah,
direction.
it's not immediate. For me, it wasn't immediate. And still dealing with it today, frankly. But I am dealing with it.
Where were you in the military?
Germany?
Doesn't seem like much action happened there, though.
I know. And that's the
Really?
way it's supposed to seem.
Oh, there was? You had to kill things?
There was stuff going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Because you think of Vietnam. I know that they said we lost 50,000 in Vietnam, but double that number committed suicide when they came back.
Right, and that's what's happening now as well.
Yeah, I know, Iraq now. But you don't think of atrocities going on because you're young in Germany.
I was in the service. I got out in '78,
Yeah.
but I am considered a Vietnam era veteran because I went in '75. But obviously Vietnam was over at that point. But suffice it to say, this government does all sorts of stuff, all sorts of places, even here. And
No, I remember when I was at Union Square selling books about 9/11, there was a Vietnam vet, a Puerto Rican. He was sort of trying to pick me up, and get me interested. But he got me so interested that when he told his story, I was looking at the ground and it was just like my soul just spiraled down into the most incredible depression
Wow.
to hear what he said. And he was basically verifying that it was a drug war and that they were like mules running drugs. And at first his voice lowered. He looked around as if somebody's going to be still
Right.
watching him, this homeless guy. And I mean, he was that reticent to talk about it. And I was just trying to verify a book that I picked up at Moe's, it was a used bookstore and Telegraph, written by some Princeton graduate, explaining the drug triangle, the heroin triangle
Right.
in Vietnam. And I just put it down those years. There wasn't a slot for me to accept that information.
Right.
But when this guy was in front of me, it was like the penny dropped.
Right.
Because I got it not only from the academic book that I wouldn't let into my awareness,
But you got it from the street.
but I got it from this guy whose story was, I mean, basically his sweetheart left him, so he turned around and signed up again because he didn't have any alternative.
And you know that those stories about the crack influx into South Central LA, I do believe that. I think there's something to that.
Do you think anything's going on now? It seems like people are so passive now.
I don't think it's active as it was because they've got the people hooked. You know, it's a very addictive drug.
They're hooked.
Yeah, I mean, it's appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Stephen?
Well, a combination. I mean, if you're fighting a war for a country based in capitalism, then it's no surprise you're going to have folks who make a capitalist killing out of a war. And whatever commodities
Are available.
yeah, whatever's moving down. If you're fighting on the Anzio beaches and you find a cellar full of rare wine, you know, then that's what you find. You find artwork when you're marauding with Alexander the Great. Go ahead, you know, haul it off. The British fill up their museums with goodies when they were out tromping in the Middle East and the Mediterranean zones. So what did Americans have in Southeast Asia? Hey, we got this. We got lots of this, and we have the means to move from here to there. In the case of opium, sure, you bet, let's do it. And you don't need that many people in the loop to pull it off. Not really.
Right.
I mean, you got people are flying the planes, loading the planes, unloading the planes, and carting the stuff away. So with really not even 200 people total, you could run a major operation, and as long as a war is being fought, no one's going to mind that extra.
Well, that was the idea. Was that's why the war was being fought. That's what triggered.
Oh,
it all.
I
And
think
here
first you get the wagon train moving, and then you put things on the wagon train. I don't think you first go, let's form a wagon train to move drugs. No, let's. The politics can inspire people to do things they don't normally otherwise think, because no one's going to go and fight a war to bring in drugs.
What the thing is if we have the study of economics that really doesn't take into account how the economy works, they won't acknowledge the drug economy, which is a major part of the economy. It's a major part of the cash exchange. Then you can't really get a real beat on
I would
it.
say a significant factor, but you know,
it's denied completely, so you don't even know.
Sure,
We can only
sure.
sit here and guess.
yeah.
But I would ask you to consider binary economics, which is that capital isn't bad. It's just there's not enough ownership of capital in diverse hands. And that means that most of our wealth doesn't come from labor, it comes from capital. So that if we try to acquire the real wealth with labor, we're never going to do it. So in order to acquire the wealth, we need to be able to do what the rich do, which is buy capital based on the earnings of future capital. And that's kind of how I see my work. I want to see if I can inform people about how much wealth is around, and not that they should stop working. I mean, sometimes people think they're just going to loaf around. But what we did with cellular was an example of capital ownership, not of
I like
anything
this
we did
term,
with our wealth.
the value of, let's see, future earnings of capital.
Capital is acquired through the earnings of future capital. It
Future.
unfortunately became the leveraged buyout, but it was
So it's
originally
like
developed.
we were saying what this thing will be worth in the future.
Well, this is what insurance companies, reinsurers lend on. They know that the top 3,000 top corporations are going to have a certain profit, and they lend based on that. So they could just as easily lend to poor as to rich, but people are distracted by it. They think corporations are bad, they think capitalism is bad, and while you're thinking all this is bad,
All this stuff is going on.
you never learn that you could acquire part of that wealth and, of course, part of that responsibility.
Well,
So we
I-
wouldn't just be griping and complaining. We'd-
No, but I like what the notion you hint at there is that it's for the individual to realize. It was put to me decades ago that the energy that we call wealth is just another energy. You can
Right.
you can generate an energy called poverty. You can generate an
Yeah.
energy called health or disease. And in the more quantum mechanical scheme of things, it's just that color that you're manifesting in a very internal way that then is radiating out, and then it's all you see are things bathed in that color. You now imprint that color on everything you perceive, everything that you're going to be involved with, and then everything that gets reflected back to you will reflect that color you were putting out. So if you're the kind of person who looks at the world in terms of lack, oh, there's not enough this, and there's not enough this, and there's not enough this, then you're going to be experiencing, like it or not, I mean, that's what you're putting out there, you'll be getting back less and less of things. Versus the exercise of just being grateful for simple things and practicing gratefulness and finding over some period of time, with the intention of honestly feeling gratitude, noticing that there's more and more in the world to be grateful for. Simple things at first, but the practice of adding that energy to your life and seeing how it plays back. So like that, in terms of capital management and what a person actually has to do for wealth, I don't find myself quite so fixated on the means of where wealth comes from. I'm more fascinated with the active energy of looking at oneself in terms of being at the wellspring of abundance. Something as simple as the notion that we don't ever seem to run out of thoughts. Basic TM lecture concept. That everyone has an inexhaustible reservoir of thinking. Easily overlooked, because it's, even to look at it is just one more thought
But a
going
lot of
by.
people don't like their thoughts.
The content will always vary, but the supply chain, it should be noticed for a moment that we have something that is infinitely abundant within us at all times. And again, it's not celebrated in the classroom because they're guarding content, but the
No,
mechanics
I
are there.
understand, Steve, but having had a spiritual show and being called a New Age flake, I've listened and I've paid attention to people that say, this is all well and good when you come from a nice background.
Yeah.
But what about us who haven't, or what about these horrors that you won't even look at, that you don't even want to consider? And that's when I felt I started looking at things like that homeless guy.
Mm-hmm.
He actually took my soul into a very uncomfortable space. But when I emerged from it, I somehow was more complete, and it created kind of a vacuum to where the spiritual pursuits that I have and quests and inquiries, it was like a vacuum. It sucked more in.
Yeah, well,
So that if I
yeah.
was to consider the heroin triangle in Vietnam, and that entire wars can be actually social